It's the first time I've seen this ever, so to hold it, so it's great. There was a time when I wondered whether it would happen, so thanks to Sheila and Colin for actually making it happen. For those of you who know me, I quite like to write about Glasgow. I've been doing that for a few years, and I'd like to start with a couple of Glasgow poems today. And the first one is called Glasgow, and it's actually based on a funeral that I saw from outside my window about 2 years ago, and I actually went to a funeral on Friday, and it evoked a lot of the memories and the kind of phrases. So I thought, even though it's about death, that it was a good way for me to start today. So Glasgow. This place is accustomed to grief, standing like a coffin bearer, sandstone heavy, a deep tolling heart. His forehead sheened in dreich, he is unflinching and nearly very handsome. He absorbs rain like Thor through cracks in old skin, waiting for the rite to begin. Relations arrive like crows from their branches, gather in small knolls, male with males, female with females, and brace themselves on the wind of one last cigarette. The shock of loss becomes pungent again, like the sudden smell of brakes. The eclipse begins indoors, the heavens truly open, roar down on the just and unjust, spool at the feet of mourners who yearn for the dry salt wake, the first possibility of light and the next gasping smoke. The bearer hears them all, his broad shoulder under the cold weight of another withered sun. Accustomed to grief, the bearer stands unflinching, absorbs the dead to his soil, his broad granite shoulder powdered with the dust of planed oak. And this next poem is based on a trip to where I live in North Wales from Central Station in Glasgow. Earlier, I touched salmon skin, silica to palm, considered histories I was leaving dark and undiscovered, ghosts squashed into common spaces no one really owned. I half felt their memories sometimes in lowish light or when exploring high up shelves. A cab breaks the quiet of rose and terracotta. Its diesel carts me and my spare parts through streets of blonde soot canaletto and potholes I now look upon as pals. My last glimpses are of Argyle Street's black grease, West Georgia's meteoric rise to pearl. Later, under central sky, I glide away, a return ticket glowing orange at my fist. I used to work in Paisley for my sins, though I enjoyed it. And I used to get the early train, get there about 8 o'clock and have a walk in the town or around the estates. And this was one that I thought up one Monday, rainy morning. Paisley morning in ordinary time. No umbrella again, so I open my hands like a priest's appeal for blessings. Collect rain cold as sequins in my palms, and they melt to anointing oil, and the garden radiates with varnished grass and come from North Wales, which is quite a different place to urban Glasgow, and I've lived here for about 6 years. We met my husband, and I always find that travelling between Wales and Glasgow quite a difficult, almost a wrench culturally. It's also quite a long journey, as Nick will testify, does the driving, and it's sort of I feel quite close to Glasgow, but I also feel close to being Welsh, and I sort of have a tussle in my mind with my nationality and where I belong, so this kind of tries to explore that a wee bit. It's called Who Are Your People? And I have put myself in exile for the cinema of the Isles, the brand new Trossachs. I have not chosen you twice, left your broad stone hearth for the yeasty flatlands, and now the hard-up ramparts. Its sensuous light is hardening my skin. I am getting hungry for the comfort and corners of farmers' ways, their quilts, the sun's arms and the small blossoms of my old language, and the valley's black hawthorn and poor hilly ground gathering like a sermon. Though the dark here still dazzles me, this tumble-down Florence, I wonder how much longer a migrant bird can bask in absentia. Pentrador. A grain of pollen returns around 3 times a year to its stamen. Born on a wind of warm pines, finds the same faithful flower unchanged, still rooted to its first cleft soil, and breathes heartfelt lilac leaves, the fur of village bees, smells slate weathering in white gold light, tastes the thickness of earth and vibration of old petals, bright and sweet as apples, rising and arching like a hyperbole of velvet and hiraeth. They form a natural sundial, a clock by which the pollen grain knows to fly again. Now I want to come back to Scotland, go up to the Isle of Man, and this poem was one of the first I ever got published, so it's quite a sentimental one for me. It's called Calgary Bay in tune. That's what it says on the tin. Pasture collars the bay, cut out of velvet shoulders, shored with a stuff of irises. Exotic sea ebbs in from Polynesia, clear and agate green. Prairie waves come sailing in, stroke the clavicle of coast, drown the thirst of Palomino's skin for salt, play shapes with its black dust. This is when I saw it for the first time, and it's sort of got a personality of its own. It was kind of something other than me, which is quite a kind of a funny thing a lovely thing to see. It's called Final Draft. Its head moved today, a faint harvest moon. Maybe a flush of waters, cooler than its shallow body, a felt sense in the thrash of its stomach. It has no name. The name is in skin folds of the groin and neck, a gathering of tallow. Muscle grows to bone and tendon. Capillaries are developing, sequences grow tall on warm syrups. It may be able to hear, and it will be cleverer than a bivalve already. An eye of uncarved wax now looks back at me. It holds me, like a botanist cupping a rare lily. It knows something of its clarity this early. It knows its own weight in words. The last poem I'm going to do is another Glasgow poem. I'll bring you back to the city, and it's based on a life drawing class that I attended called Dancer. Tonight I dance suspended, a circle's radius lit by white spirit, linseed oil. I melt to naked buttermilk, soft curd. They size me up, and he says, be conscious of the space around the form. Note the darker tones of the sacrum, the expression of the spine. I feel the heat of his finger at my tiny cage and rock infinitesimally like a birch in a tiny wind. Hold for 16 more minutes, thinking of my cool silk gown, my break time cigarette. They vote to let me lie for the longer pose, thank God, and by 9 their thumbs are black with Olympias. They praise each other on such a close resemblance, a clever inference of light. I do not stay to see the Hall of Mirrors. My body aches for night's fresh velvet. On my way out, I am thanked in a gratuity of coins. Overhear someone say how beautiful I became. Thank you. It's really difficult to follow a funny poet. So we've all got our own styles, haven't we? But I admire your stuff. Okay. As people who know me, know that I wear Dr. Martens quite a lot, all the time. So this is a poem about Dr. Martens, and it's after Frank O'Hara. Oh, my shoes.
how little I knew of pain, until your tissue paper wraps unfolded. Like prose you looked, like gifts back then, fresh out of your cross-country box. Steel-tipped laces, bright orange soles. A candle of leather soap to boot. In timorous wonder I sank myself into you. Now, you might think, my toes may crush up against your toe-cap rivets, or my Achilles cut sharp against reinforced back plates. But my one's loose, by half a woman's size, trogrond. No lesions, no walls, no bite. And my feet are loosed on earth as they are in limbo. Do I pander to insoles, heel grips, I wonder? But great brain thought, for the joy and comfort of an extra pair of socks, Highland sphagnum thick. You two are beautiful again, inside, outside. Take me anywhere, my petroleum black lords. Walk me 1,000 miles on Glasgow's hallows, her leaf skin, her royal borough bitumen. Take me in entirety now. I'd like to do a journey poem now, and my husband and I went to Wick from Glasgow about 3 years ago. It's just to say we'd been there really, because we never knew what it was like, and we're not sure we'll ever go back. But it was quite an interesting all day. I think it took 7 hours. So we could have got to Spain, or could have got to, I don't know, Derby or somewhere in the time we took. Inverness to Wick. Dingwall, Alness, Invergordon, Tame. Softest green, apple vellum. Water malleted to the smoothest blade. A hush of rosebud willow hair drifts to the train's music. A manuscript of trees screams by. Ardgate, Golspie. The crumb of life is as clear as the pattern of stone grain. Loss and hardship, the twin of spring's joyous soil, with wheat, kale, grass, the scent of old trouble, memories of wet harvests seeping to earth, faces turning to salt. Brora. 2 seals almost levitate on a beach of deep gold. Cormorants, black as commas, gather on a page of basalt. Helmsdale. The habit of buzzards, merlin, shy greenshank. Pagan lines of states, parched, in this essentially maritime climate, are set in lines of lonely consecration. This the frontier of new hours and gorsebuns, and veined eyes forecast the trajectory of clouds on a slender horizon, and spruces mark a boundary where I look for daytime owls. Forcinard. After meadows of golden delicious, cows of dark felt yield to Forcinard's dull ruby, a place of scientific interest for mustard creeping lichen, the sweet rosettes of sundew, hungry for the phosphorus of beetles. It is the tiny things that create the whole. Georgianus Junction, Wick. Polished grass and sky, spun milk churns dark silver. North prairies stretch with flows and greens. This short poem is about the River Whiteadder, which is near North Berwick, I think. Sleek gundog black and slack, it sings the song it sang as rain. A supple forte till the sea, thigh high, slicking by oat grasses and the honeys of late summer. They shudder with the peat of it. So do we, under falling in sky. This next poem is about the launch of one of the destroyers at Govan shipyards, which I saw being made. We lived in Partick, so we used to go down to Glasgow Harbour and see the 5 bits being melted into one. Launch of HMS Dragon. Autumn sun lamps down to make a veil, and for extra glamour her stern is flourished red and brythonic. Yet when she is free of rope, she lingers, magnified, an eyebrow raised to gravity, as if she does not want the sea today or is gauging her first longitude. Her slide begins like dawn, letting in first light. Chains roar their applause and holy water buckles. Small tugs turn her sharp, she is still as empty as a doll. Later, with dusk, we watch her first voluptuous waterline.
Warm hands greet me, cold fingers in browned palms. He holds them, joyful, and smiles down a sun. He's been waiting 100 years behind rains and sandstone squalls. I am home again. Thank you very much.
Really.